What if I told you, right now, tonight, that scientists have found a microscopic living organism that walks into a cancer tumor like it owns the place and proceeds to kill up to 99% of every cancer cell inside it? Not a drug, not radiation, not a surgery, a bacteria, a living, breathing, self guided organism that has spent millions of years evolving one extraordinary skill, surviving in exactly the kind of environment where cancer hides. And here's what will genuinely shake you to your core: this is not science fiction. This is not a fringe experiment from a discredited lab. This is happening right now in peer reviewed clinical trials at some of the most respected cancer research institutions on the planet. And the reason your oncologist hasn't mentioned it is the same reason nobody told you that your gut bacteria determine whether immunotherapy works or fails, that your body has been growing blood vessels that feed cancer, and that there are natural ways to stop it, that there is an entire invisible war being fought inside your body. And for the first time in human history, we are learning how to win it. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because what I'm about to share with you is going to permanently change how you think about cancer, about bacteria, about your body, and about what is actually possible when science stops playing it safe. What if I told you that inside your body right now, there exists a natural mechanism so powerful that scientists are calling it nature's assassin? A bacteria capable of seeking out cancer cells and destroying them with surgical precision? The bacteria in question is Clostridium novii, C. novii, an anaerobic bacterium that has been quietly studied in laboratories for over 2 decades. Here's the shocking part: this is not new. Scientists have known since the early 1900s that certain bacteria had an unexplained tendency to migrate directly into tumors, but it was buried, dismissed, and largely ignored by mainstream medicine because it didn't fit the pharmaceutical model of treatment. Fast forward to today, and researchers at Johns Hopkins and other elite institutions are publishing jaw dropping data showing that when attenuated, weakened versions of C. novii are injected directly into tumors, cancer cells begin dying. Not 10%, not 20%, but in some laboratory models, up to 99% of cancer cells are eliminated. This bacteria thrives in low oxygen environments, and tumors, because they grow so rapidly, are oxygen depleted zones. That makes them the perfect breeding ground for this bacteria, and that is its death sentence. What if cancer's greatest strength was also its most catastrophic weakness? To understand why this bacteria is so extraordinary, you first need to understand something that most doctors never explain to their patients: the tumor microenvironment. Tumors are not just clusters of rogue cells, they are intelligent ecosystems. They build their own blood supply, secrete signals that suppress your immune system, and create a fortress of low oxygen called a hypoxic zone. This hypoxic zone is specifically designed to keep your immune cells out. Chemotherapy drugs struggle to penetrate it. Radiation loses effectiveness inside it. Even your body's own natural killer cells are repelled. For decades, this made solid tumors, especially aggressive ones like pancreatic, colon, and lung cancers, virtually untouchable from the inside. Oncologists could attack from the outside, but the tumor's core, off limits. Here's the shocking twist. C. novii does not just survive in hypoxic environments, it actively seeks them out. It has evolved over millions of years to thrive exactly where oxygen is absent. So when injected near a tumor, it doesn't get confused or repelled. It locks on like a guided missile and colonizes the tumor's most protected interior, releasing enzymes and toxins that tear cancer cells apart from within. What if the clinical trial that could save millions of lives was already underway, and you just hadn't heard about it yet? In 2014, a landmark case shook the oncology world. A woman with a soft tissue sarcoma, a cancer that had failed to respond to multiple conventional treatments, received an injection of attenuated C. novi spores directly into her tumor. Within weeks, imaging showed dramatic tumor regression. This wasn't a computer model. This wasn't a petri dish. This was a human being. Since then, phase 1 clinical trials at Johns Hopkins have expanded, showing that the bacteria can be safely administered and that tumor destruction is not just possible, it is repeatable. More recently, researchers have combined bacterial therapy with checkpoint inhibitors. the class of immunotherapy drugs that won the Nobel Prize in 2018 DRAS, and the results are staggering. When the bacteria destroy the tumor from within, they release what scientists call tumor antigens, essentially cancer's fingerprints, into the bloodstream. Your immune system then reads those fingerprints and launches a full-scale systemic attack not just on the original tumor, but on metastatic cancer cells throughout the body. This is called the abscopal effect, and combining it with bacteria may be the most powerful one-two punch cancer has ever faced. What if cancer is not invincible? It's just very, very hungry, and nobody has been cutting off its food supply. Every solid tumor, to survive and grow beyond a tiny cluster of cells, must do one critical thing. It must grow its own blood vessels. This process is called angiogenesis, and it is the lifeline of every dangerous tumor in the human body. Without new blood vessels, a tumor cannot receive nutrients, cannot grow, and cannot spread. For years, scientists have been developing anti-angiogenic drugs to choke off this supply, and they work, partially. But here's what's extraordinary about bacterial cancer therapy. When C. novii colonizes a tumor, one of its first actions is to disrupt the tumor's internal vasculature, its blood vessel network. As these vessels collapse, the tumor is simultaneously being destroyed from within by bacterial toxins and being starved of the nutrients it needs to repair itself. It's a double assault the tumor has no evolutionary defense against. And because the bacteria are selective, they only thrive in oxygen-poor tumor tissue. Healthy surrounding tissue with normal oxygen levels remains completely unaffected. This is the specificity that chemotherapy has always lacked and that patients have always desperately needed. What if the single most powerful cancer-fighting tool you have isn't a drug, isn't a surgery, isn't a radiation machine? It's living inside your gut right now? The human microbiome, the 38 trillion bacteria that live primarily in your digestive system, is now at the center of some of the most explosive cancer research of the 21st century. Scientists have discovered that specific bacteria in your gut directly regulate the behavior of your immune system's cancer-fighting cells, particularly T cells and natural killer cells. Patients who have a diverse, healthy microbiome respond dramatically better to immunotherapy. In some studies, up to 5 times better than patients with depleted gut bacteria. Even more shocking, researchers have identified specific bacterial species, including Akkermansia mucinifila and Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, that appear to turbocharge the immune system's ability to recognize and destroy cancer cells. What depletes these bacteria? Antibiotics, processed food, chronic stress, lack of sleep? The very lifestyle that has become normalized in modern society is systematically dismantling the army that stands between you and cancer. The emerging field of oncobiomics is now exploring whether deliberately restoring these bacterial populations through targeted probiotics, dietary intervention, and even fecal microbiota transplants can prime the immune system for cancer destruction. What if we are standing at the edge of the greatest medical revolution in human history? And the hero of this revolution is not a trillion-dollar molecule, but a microscopic living organism that costs almost nothing to produce? The convergence of bacterial cancer therapy, immunotherapy, and precision oncology is creating a new paradigm that researchers believe could make traditional chemotherapy largely obsolete within the next 2 decades. Here is what the future looks like. A patient is diagnosed with an aggressive tumor. Instead of immediately beginning a regimen of toxic drugs that devastate the entire body, they receive a precisely engineered bacterial injection, custom designed to match their tumor's specific genetic profile. The bacteria colonize the tumor, destroy it from within, release cancer antigens, and simultaneously activate the patient's immune system. A checkpoint inhibitor drug amplifies that immune response. The patient's own microbiome, supported by a personalized dietary and probiotic protocol, sustains the attack. No hair loss, no nerve damage, no crushed immune system. Clinical centers like MD Anderson, Johns Hopkins, and the Francis Crick Institute are not dreaming about this future. They are building it right now. The question is no longer if bacteria will be used to fight cancer. The question is how soon and who will be ready. What if I told you that your body is not mostly human? Genetically speaking, you are outnumbered. For every 1 human cell in your body, There are approximately 1 to 10 microbial cells, bacteria, fungi, viruses living in and on you right now. And for most of history, we treated these organisms as passengers, stowaways, things to be eliminated, sanitized away, killed with antibiotics at the first sign of trouble. We were catastrophically wrong. The greatest medical revelation of the 21st century is not a new drug molecule or a gene therapy. It is the discovery that the microorganisms living inside your body are not invaders. They are co-pilots. They regulate your immune system. They influence your mood. They determine how you respond to medications. And now we are discovering something even more extraordinary. Certain bacteria, when precisely directed, are capable of walking into a cancerous tumor and destroying it from the inside out. Let me show you exactly how and why this changes everything. The bacterium at the center of this revolution is called Clostridium novii, C. novii for short. It is anaerobic, which means it cannot survive in the presence of oxygen. And here is the critical fact that makes everything possible. Aggressive tumors, because they grow so rapidly that their blood supply cannot keep up, develop pockets of profoundly low oxygen, what scientists call hypoxic zones. These hypoxic zones are cancer's private sanctuary. Your immune cells can't function in there. Chemotherapy drugs can barely penetrate. Radiation is less effective. The tumor has essentially built itself an impenetrable bunker inside your body. And then along comes C. novii, and for this bacteria, that bunker is not a threat. It's paradise. It actively seeks out oxygen-depleted environments. It migrates directly into the tumor core, colonizes it, multiplies, and begins releasing enzymes and toxins that tear cancer cells apart from the inside. In some laboratory models and early clinical studies, the result has been the destruction of up to 99% of cancer cells within the treated tumor. 99%. Now let me walk you through what is actually happening inside a tumor when bacterial therapy is deployed, because the biology here is nothing short of breathtaking. When attenuated, that means weakened, rendered unable to cause systemic infection. Spores of C. novii are injected near a tumor, they germinate in the hypoxic zone, they begin to produce what are called cytotoxic enzymes, chemicals that are toxic specifically to rapidly dividing cells, cancer cells. But here's where the story becomes even more remarkable. As the bacteria destroy tumor tissue, they release what scientists call tumor antigens, essentially the molecular identity cards of those cancer cells, into the surrounding bloodstream. Your immune system, which the tumor has spent enormous energy suppressing and evading, suddenly gets a clear look at the enemy. It learns the cancer's signature. And then, incredibly, it begins attacking not just the tumor that was injected, but other cancer cells throughout the body that share that signature. This phenomenon is called the abscopal effect, and combining it with bacterial therapy and modern immunotherapy checkpoint inhibitors creates a response that cancer has never encountered before in the history of human medicine. The tumor doesn't just shrink, the immune system learns to hunt it. But the bacteria story doesn't begin and end with C. novii. There is another dimension to this revolution that is equally astonishing, and it concerns the 38 trillion bacteria currently living in your digestive system. Your gut microbiome is not just involved in digestion, it is the central command of your immune system. And the relationship between your gut bacteria and your ability to fight cancer is so profound that researchers are now saying the composition of your microbiome may determine whether you survive cancer treatment. Here is the shocking data. Patients with a diverse, healthy gut microbiome respond to immunotherapy drugs called checkpoint inhibitors at dramatically higher rates than patients with depleted gut bacteria. In some studies, the difference in response rates is fivefold, 5 times more likely to respond. And what are we doing to our gut microbiome? We are destroying it. Antibiotics, processed food, chronic stress, environmental toxins. All of these systematically wipe out the bacterial species that train your immune system to recognize and attack cancer cells. Researchers have now identified specific bacteria, Akkermansia, Mucinifila, and Fiacalibacterium prausnitzii among them, that appear to supercharge cancer immunity. And the emerging field of oncobiomics is asking the question that should be on every oncologist's lips. Can we deliberately restore these microbial populations to make cancer treatment more effective? The early answer is a resounding, world-changing yes. What if I told you that cancer is not just a genetic disease, it is a vascular disease? Every solid tumor above a certain size must do something that normal tissues only do in very specific circumstances. It must grow new blood vessels to feed itself. This process is called angiogenesis, and without it, a tumor cannot grow beyond 2 millimeters. It cannot spread. It cannot survive. For years, oncologists have been trying to use anti-angiogenic drugs to choke off this blood supply, and they work, partially, but they cause side effects. They are not targeted, and tumors develop resistance to them. Bacterial therapy offers something far more elegant. When C. novi colonizes a tumor, it doesn't just kill cancer cells with toxins. It simultaneously disrupts the tumor's internal vasculature, the fragile blood vessels the tumor has constructed to feed itself. Those vessels collapse. The tumor is being destroyed from within and starved of nutrients simultaneously. And here is what is almost poetic about it. Because the bacteria only thrive in oxygen-poor environments, because they can only colonize the hypoxic zones found in tumors, healthy tissue is left completely untouched. This is the targeted precision that decades of chemotherapy research have tried and failed to achieve, delivered by a microscopic organism that evolved this capability over millions of years before humans even existed. Part 6. The future is already here. What if the end of cancer as we know it is not 100 years away? What if it is not even 20 years away? Right now, at Johns Hopkins, at MD Anderson, at the Francis Crick Institute, at cancer centers across the world, scientists are combining bacterial therapy with checkpoint immunotherapy, with personalized microbiome restoration, with anti-angiogenic approaches, with precision genetic targeting, and they are getting results that would have been called miracles just a generation ago. The vision emerging from these laboratories is not incremental. It is revolutionary. A patient receives a diagnosis. Instead of immediately beginning months of toxic chemotherapy that destroys healthy tissue alongside cancerous tissue, instead of the nausea and hair loss and nerve damage and immune suppression that we have accepted as the cost of survival, they receive a precisely engineered bacterial formulation, custom designed to match the genetic signature of their specific tumor. The bacteria colonize the tumor. The immune system is activated. A dietary protocol restores the microbiome. The patient's own body does the rest. We are not there yet, but we are closer than the world knows. And every single day, somewhere in a laboratory, a scientist is getting one step closer to the day when a doctor can look a cancer patient in the eyes and say, "We are not going to poison you to save you. We are going to use life to fight death." What if everything we thought we knew about fighting cancer was only the beginning? What if the most powerful allies we have in this battle aren't manufactured in pharmaceutical labs, but have been living inside and around us all along? Today, we have uncovered 6 truths that mainstream medicine has been slow to embrace. We have learned that bacteria can be weaponized against cancer with extraordinary precision, that the tumor microenvironment, long considered impenetrable, is exactly where our most powerful new medicine thrives, that real patients in real clinical trials are experiencing tumor regression that challenges everything we thought was possible, that cancer needs blood vessels to survive and those blood vessels can be collapsed from within, that your gut microbiome is not a passive passenger but an active immune commander, and that the convergence of these insights is creating a cancer treatment revolution that is already underway. The message I want you to carry with you is this: cancer is not unbeatable. It never was. We have been fighting it with blunt instruments when precision weapons were hiding in plain sight. The era of using life to fight disease, using biology against biology, has begun. And the 99% figure that sounds impossible today will one day be the standard that saves your life or the life of someone you love. Knowledge is not passive. Share what you have learned. Ask your doctors about the microbiome. Ask about clinical trials. Ask about bacterial therapy, because the patients who survive the future will be the ones who refuse to stop asking questions today.